My name is Buddy Cantrelle. I'm from La Rose, Louisiana. Born and raised there. I spent 7 years. I'm almost 61 up in Connecticut, but we'll get to that in a little bit. I started out on Tugs when I was 16 years old, working on the miners release that my mom and dad had to sign. I was the summer between my junior and senior year of high school. And I worked for a company called Mullet Incorporated. At the time was the largest independently owned tug company in the world. It no longer exists today, but I spent the whole summer there, summer of '77. And when I went back to school for my senior year, I graduated at the end of May of '78. The day after graduation, I was back aboard a Ontario tug at 17 years of age. The tug was the Ontario, which is now the Crosby leader. So I kind of went full circle with the
where you started, you're back with the company where your original boat was.
That's right, that's right. So I worked there until my 18th birthday, when at that point I hired on with a company called Fleet Marine at the time, which is now Tidewall. But you had to be 18 to work for them, and that's where my father was a captain. And as soon as I turned 18, I went and worked over there. I was a deckhand, and about 7 months later, I got to be a trainee mate, and about 6 months later, I made mate. And when I made captain on December 10th, 1980, you can find out. I don't forget dates, but December 10th, 1980, was my first captain's job. The reason I remember it so well is because I was the youngest captain in the fleet at that time, and the captain that I relieved was my father.
Really?
And when he saw it was me that came to relieve him, he said, "Okay, boys, he said, come on up to the TV room there." He said, "We have to have a talk." So he spent about 3 hours educating me on what it was to be a captain. He said, "As far as the boat handling, buddy," he said, "I'm not worried about that. You wouldn't be coming as captain if you couldn't handle a boat. There's a lot more to being a captain than just handling a boat. You got to manage your crew. You got to manage your expenses. You don't want to waste money. And but the most important thing I don't want you to ever forget," he says, "as a captain, you have to demand respect from your crew. But if you want to be respected as a man on that dock, you got to earn that respect." And he said, "You're going to do fine." He says, "But just remember, you get out there on the job site and you can't get it done, there ain't nobody for you to call. You're the man now.
Yeah, go ahead.
As a mate, you could always fall back on calling the captain if something came up that was a little much for you. But now, you're the man."
Oh, yeah,
And I welcomed it. I always liked a good challenge. I've been around boats my whole life. Okay, so that was an educational talk with my dad, and who I have a tremendous amount of respect for. He unfortunately had to retire early as a captain. He broke his back on the Tugs when he was 48 years old, and so he was forced to retire, medical retirement, and 20 years later he succumbed to cancer. But he was my walk-in encyclopedia as far as any
It's a wealth of knowledge.
Yeah, he's just a phenomenal, and
you're very fortunate to have that.
very fortunate, and I referenced him a lot. I call him a lot. "Hey, Daddy, look, we got this. What you think? What would you do?" "Well, buddy, you got to take all factors into account, and bottom line," he said, "is you're called to make."
Yeah.
And then I'd say, "Well, what would you do?" He said, "Well, this is what I would do." He said, "But I'm not out there. You are." He said, "You just go what you got."
That's right.
And which is what the best advice anybody can give you, So I was with Gulf Fleet Marine, and it turned into Zapata Gulf Marine several years later, which I left Zapata Gulf Marine in 1988. I went to work for Moran Towing out of New York. That's when they had that big strike up there in February of '88, when all those companies went on strike. The personnel recruiter that they hired to find people was my personnel manager at Zapata Golf for many years. So he contacted me.
Okay,
Yeah, he contacted me. I had just made a tandem tow back from Puerto Rico. We just got back into New Orleans. And he come find me. I don't know how he knew where I was at, but he came find me. He said, man, look, buddy, he said, we need some captains. And I said, well, what kind of money are we talking about? He told me, I almost fell on the floor compared to what I was making down in the Gulf, you know. And I said, well, let's say I give my notice and I tell you, yeah, I'm coming. I said, what's the deal? He said, well, at the time it was February the 2nd, and that strike date was February the 16th. He said, Moran will put you on the payroll right now, and when the vote is taken, if they vote to strike, you have a job immediately, and it's a permanent job, as long as you do your job. Okay, which is all I could ask. He said, but if they vote not to strike, then your relationship with Moran ends on the 16th of February. I said, I'll tell you what, I'm going to take that chance. I'm going to roll the dice. I'm a little bit of a gambler. I said, look, in 7 years, all I got was pay cut and benefit reduction because everything was so bad in the Gulf, you know. So I said, you know what? Worst case that would happen is that they don't go on strike, and I'll get my job back. I'm not worried about that. So that's what I did. I gave my notice, but I gave them a chance. I said, look, this is what they're going to be paying me. If y'all split the difference and give me 50% of what they offer me, I'm not going nowhere. Man, buddy, we can't do that. If we do that, we got to do for other captains. I said, well, look, no hard feelings. I enjoyed it. I said, I'll stay in touch. I said, but it's time for me to move on. We parted on good terms, and I spent 5 years on the Tugs for Moran. They voted to go on strike. I spent 5 years on the Tugs. I went all over the world for them. I went to South America, Central America, East and West Coast of South and Central America, West Africa, Europe, all over the eastern Gulf Coast of the U.S., Puerto Rico, Lord, you name it. I did a lot of traveling from Moran, and I enjoyed every minute of it. Hardest part has always been just being away from the family. You know, that's all.
Sure.
The job itself, I loved it. So after I was with Moran 5 years, the gentleman in the office that I replaced, he retired, and they offered another captain that was on the same class boat I was on from Moran. They offered him the position, and so they gave him a 90-day trial period. They told him, if you liked it, good, you got it. If you don't, you still got your job on the Doris Moran. So while that was going on, I was on the Marion Moran with the Bar Virginia going to the west coast of Guatemala. So while I was in Guatemala, that was in Captain Tugs. He took the position January 1st that year. And in February, I was in Guatemala. And one day talking to him, he told me, he said, look, buddy, he said, I just want to let you know, he said, I've decided that I'm going back on the Tugs. He said, this is not for me. He said, but I also want to let you know that I recommended you for a job. I said, okay. I never thought about it, you know. And so Charlie was one of the Maritime Academy graduates, okay, and a long time captain for Moran. And so I got back home from that job, and I want to say it was the beginning of March that year. Moran called me. He wanted to fly me up there to do an interview with me. So they put me on a plane. I flew up there, took me around the office, introduced me to all the people I've been talking to but never met.
Right. Yeah.
You know, they give me a rundown of what it would be. I would oversee all the offshore operations for Moran towing. They wanted me there for my technical knowledge of towing. They also told me that if I accepted the job, it was going to be the same terms that Captain Charlie had here. I would try for 90 days. If I liked it, the job's mine. If I didn't, I still had my job as captain on the Marion. And they also told me if I accepted the job, I'll be the first non-college graduate to ever have that position, because they're not in the habit of doing that. But they told me, he said, buddy, we're not bringing you aboard for your college education, which you don't have. He said, we want what's in here for your subject knowledge. That's it. We want to know what you learn from your hard knock knowledge. I said, well, I'll tell you what, I'm going to talk to my wife when I get home tonight. I'm going to let y'all know first thing in the morning. Flew back down, sat with my wife, my mom and my dad. Well, my dad was hoping I wouldn't take that job because he knew we was going to be living 1,500 miles apart, you know. But I told my wife, I said, look, here's the deal. I'm not going to go up there and waste my time and their time if we don't plan on moving up there, because to take that job, we have to live in either Connecticut or New York, because the corporate office is in Greenwich, Connecticut. And I'll never forget what my wife told me. She said, baby, if it gets you home every night and then I have to go on another long trip again, she said, we'll move to the North Pole. I don't care. I said, well, you made my decision easy. I'm going to call them tomorrow, let them know I'm coming. So I went up there. After about a month, I'm talking to my wife from the hotel. I said, you know, baby, I don't know if this is for me. I always told her and my father that I wanted to be shoreside for a boat company by age 40. Because I felt once I put in 22, 23 years, I'd have a good bit of experience to do a job on shore well. Because if I'm going to do a job, I want to do it well. So anyhow, I tell my wife on the phone, I said, you know, I don't know if I'm ready for this. I said, you know, I just feel that, I don't feel that it's right, it's not the right time. She said, well, Bev, if now is not the right time, when's going to be the right time? I said, well, I'd always planned around age 40 coming shoreside. I said, I'm only 32. She said, well, what you worried about? I said, well, I just want to make sure I can do the job. All right. She said, let me tell you something. She said, you can do the job. I don't have one doubt in my mind that you can do the job. She said, so don't let that scare you. If you think that's something you would like, she said, look, you still got 2 more months. She said, I said, no, I know, I'm not making a decision right now. I'm just letting you know that I'm leaning towards going back on the boat. Well, a month later we talked again, and I told her, I said, get ready, I'm getting ready to fly you up. We're going to look for some houses. And boy, you talk about a happy woman. Because my wife, she knew that's what I did, but she did not like me going overseas. Overseas, didn't like me going overseas. You know, yeah, her father did it, she hated it. And but let me tell you, that was one happy camper. And so I spent 16 years on the Tugs, and I'm going on my 29th year shoreside. And you know, it was great for us. I spent 7 years in the office for Moran Towing, and then I got homesick. I was sitting there in my office one day, there wasn't a whole lot going on. I was thinking, man, what you gonna do, buddy? You gonna stay over here? What you gonna do? Phone rings, and it's my brother-in-law, who's the CFO of Crosby Tugs. He says, hey man, he said, you ever thought about coming back down to the bayou? I said, well, I tell you what, I'm at the office right now. Why don't you give me a call when I get home tonight? Okay. So we hang up. He called me up, and we negotiated for 4 days and 4 nights. And I told him, I said, tell Mr. Kurt I'm coming. And boy, let me tell you, my wife was pissed. If it had been up to her, we'd still be in Connecticut right now. She loved it. She loved it. And my youngest girl was born up there. So when we moved to Louisiana, she was 5. And to her, Louisiana was a place we went visit in the summertime to visit the old people. You know what I mean?
Right, yeah.
My oldest girl, Cassie, she hated Connecticut. We was up there 7 years, and she was cutting backflips. She was so happy when we told her we were coming back. She was 9 when we moved up there, and 16 when we moved back. And but I don't regret 1 minute of it, because it gave me an opportunity to spend time with my father. Because 5 years later, my father passed. And I was able to spend his last 3 weeks, I was able to be with him every day. Which if I was still in the Connecticut, I wouldn't have had that opportunity. So that's why I was very fortunate in that regard. And plus, I was just homesick. That's the reason I came back. I took a huge pay cut to go back home. But it's never about money with me, bro. I gotta be happy. If I'm not happy, and I've only moved 4 times in my entire career, job-wise.
Well, after you got back working with Crosby, things have just kind of progressed along, and you've been back home, and you're continuing to do what you love to do.
Yeah.
And you're back home.
Yeah.
It doesn't get any better than that.
That's it. Now in 2003, I had 3 years with Crosby, and a longtime friend of mine, graduates together from high school, called me and made me an offer I couldn't refuse. So I went to work for him, a supply boat company, still in the boat business.
Yeah.
And I worked for him for 14 years until everything got so bad in the oil patch, and his company ended up going under. So I called right away. I called Mr. Kurt. I said, hey man, I said, look, what you think? He said, man, buddy, look, I'd love to bring you on board right now. He said, but I don't have any positions open shoreside. However, you name a boat, it's yours. I said, well, look, Mr. Kurt, I said, I appreciate that, but I said, man, I've been shoreside so long. I said, I really don't want to go back on the boat, but if I don't have any choice, I'll call you back. He said, well, just let me know. So I called, man, I couldn't find no work nowhere. It was just a bad time. And there's a shipyard down there called Thomas E. Shipyard, big shipyard in Louisiana. About a 35-minute drive from my house. And it's run by my two cousins. They took over from their father a few years back. And so they offered me a job over there as the director of marketing and sales. I said, brother, I'm not ready. Sign me up. Let's go. I got to work. So I worked there for 16 months. And shipyards are a lot like the boat business. Things get slow. They need to start laying people off. Well, I was one that got laid off. My first call was to Mr. Kurt Crosby. And he was in Houston on business. But I was told, he said, Mr. Kurt said, ask if you could be in his office tomorrow at 9 o'clock in the morning. Tell him I'll be there. And next morning, 9 o'clock. And that was in August 2nd of 18. We had a 15-minute conversation, handshake deal done, back with Crosby. And I told him, I said, look, Kurt, my desire is to retire here. And I'm just letting you know ahead of time, I'm not looking to retire at age 65. When I got my help, it's on. Because I've seen too many of us old captains retire at 65, and 6 months later we're in the ground.
Gotta keep moving.
Yeah, that's what an old man told me years ago, Andy. He said, buddy, the secret to a long life is to stay active. Don't be a couch potato and get out of that damn recliner. Get out there and walk, have a garden. My grandpa was 96 years old when he died, and he worked the garden until a month before he passed away. You wear a hoe down. but you know, it's the boat business is all I know, and I love it. I wouldn't change nothing that happened over the years. I'm a firm believer that everything happens for a reason, and I enjoy being shoreside because I get to spend a lot of time with my wife, my daughters, and the grandsons. This particular project here has kept me away from home for 14 months, almost 14 months. It's been great. I couldn't have asked to be on a better project with professionals, unbelievable people I've been working with for all the different parties. It got me to smell the salt water again for a few months, as opposed to be behind a desk. And let me tell you, I'd do it again in a heartbeat today. It's not over yet. We got a few days left to go, but I can tell you one thing. St.simons Island is a place where my wife and I will visit again.
Well, we'll be glad to visit with you when you get back.
You know, it's I'll just back up a little bit. You know, some of the things I've done over the years, I've told all different kind of rigs they got, the floating rigs, semi-submersible, jack-up rigs. I've told dead ships. I went out and rescued ships that were broke down at sea, bring them into port. I've towed all petroleum barges, I've towed coal barges, I've towed barges with wheat, grain products all over the world. I've got 14 round-trip transits through the Panama Canal, which is a beautiful place. Now I haven't been in it since they built the new locks and widened the canal, because my last transit was in 1993. That's 28 years ago, right. So the canal's changed a lot since then. But that was always an event. Very nice.
You were telling me a story about a trip. I think you were going to Ireland, and the boat got hot.
England,
England.
yes, absolutely. We delivered a barge loaded with U.S. Army equipment to Southampton, England in January of 1990. And on our way back to New York, like the morning of January 25th, 1990, we had a major engine room fire. The closest point of land was St. John's, Newfoundland, 600 miles. Now, you got to understand, this is winter in the North Atlantic. The water is ice cold. So we tried, but could not get the fire out. So we had to abandon the tug. We had to jump in an inflatable life raft. Now, we put out a mayday call, and we were so fortunate that a ship heard the mayday call. And we was in that life raft for 4 hours. And to me, it felt like a lifetime. And I knew I had help coming.
Right.
All I could think about was, man, what it would feel like if I didn't know help was coming. To step off that boat into that life raft with 8 other men. And they put us on the ship, brought us to La Havre, France, and got us some clothes and put us up at a hotel that night, and then brought us to the U.S. Embassy the next day, got issued all temporary U.S. passports and flew home. Before I could go home, though, I had to go to the Coast Guard station at the battery so I could explain to them what happened.
The boat out there.
Yeah. Myself and my chief engineer, and do the drug testing and all that, all standard stuff. And let me tell you, when I finally got home, I was ready. It was time. It was time. That was an ordeal my wife will never forget. When she saw me at the airport, she gave me a hug. By now, I thought she was going to choke me.
Well, we're all fortunate to have you back. But man, when you told me that story, I was just I couldn't believe. You're self-reliant when you get that. It's all you. You're 600 miles away from help.
That's it.
That help's a long time coming.
And the last thing that you want to do is panic. And I had a crew member that started to panic on me. And I had to shake him. I had to grab him and shake him. I said, Bill, we got help coming. Relax. We're going to be fine. And so he settled down because he was really starting to lose it, And I've always told, I said, buddy, once your crew loses, that's when people get hurt and people get killed. So that's why I told him. I said, look, man, I said, you need to settle down. Because if you don't, I will settle you down. And he settled down. And thankfully, all 8 guys I brought to England with me, I brought all 8 of them back.
That's what counts.
Without a scratch on them, and that's all that mattered to me.
Yep, that's exactly.
But there's things that could turn up when you're in this boat business, man, that, you got to make a split-second decision, and sometimes it's a life or death decision. And you gotta live with that decision you make. So you hope and pray that you make the right one. You don't always make the right decision. But partner, I've always been told, if you want to err on the side of safety. Always, everything we do, it's all risk assessed management. Okay? It's okay. Customer asks us to do this. Okay, let's sit down and talk about it. Sit down and talk about it. The captain, what's up there? Okay, we do this, we can do it safely. Okay. Well, you know what? I don't think you can do it safely. You gotta be able to know when to tell your client that you can't do something. Even knowing that he may decide to release you. Because the bottom line is, I'd rather be released by a client than do something in my heart that I know is wrong and have a boat tear up or have get a man hurt or killed.
Go home at the end of the day.
That's not going to happen to me, ever. It's going to go err on the side of safety.
Well, let me ask you this, buddy. As you've been in the industry, looking back, what's the biggest change you've seen to the towing industry here?
The biggest change that I've seen, and I'm going to tell you, Andy, it's a very, very concerning change, is the young boys coming up that's going to replace all your old folks that are running these boats nowadays. See, when I came to work on the boats as a teenager, bro, I was full of piss and vinegar, partner. I wanted to get on there. I wanted to learn. I told those captains, when y'all move this boat, I want to be up. I don't care if it's off watch. I want to learn because I'm gonna be a captain one day, and I ain't gonna learn how to be that in a damn bunk. I said, when we move, and I want to be out on deck, I want to be learning. Well, the young kids today, 17, 18-year-old kids, don't think that way. You know, I worked for a whole summer on a tugboat running anchors for Brown and Root as a 16-year-old boy. And I'm gonna tell you right now, when I went to school to start my senior year in high school, and I walked in that school, I felt like a man amongst boys because I worked all summer with men.
Yeah.
And I had to pull my weight on my ass was going to the house. Okay? And I even told my mom and dad, I said, man, it feels so weird being in school, man. I feel like I'm a man amongst boys, you know? And you know, you got kids nowadays that 25 years old, I call them a kid, but they don't know what they want to do at 25. I knew I wanted to be a boat captain when I was 8 years old, bro. My mom took me to visit my dad on a tugboat in Bayou Buff. And he took us down Bayou Chene on the tugboat, the Vincent J. Robin the Fort. I'll never forget that. A steering wheel. I steered that boat down the bay and back up.
You're hooked right down.
I told my mom when I was on my way back home, she said, I'm telling you, Mom, I'm going to be a tugboat captain when I grow up. She said, you sure? Yes, ma'am, I'm going to be a tugboat captain. For years, I tried to get her to let me quit school so I could go to work, and a lot of my friends were quitting school at 14, 15, 16, going to work on the boats. My dad told me, boy, as long as I'm breathing, you got your ass is getting a high school diploma. Now, if you want to go to work after that on the boats, fine. So, like I said, they gave me permission. They signed for me to go for the summer between my junior and senior year. And by now, I was hooked. And the day after graduation, I was back on the boat. And I had set a goal. I wanted to be captain by age 25. I achieved it at age 20. I set a goal. I wanted to be shoreside. The biggest obstacle that the boat companies are faced with nowadays is that the younger men and women that was coming into the workforce on these vessels 30 years ago are not coming now. Because back in the day, it was an acceptable practice for dad or grandpa to work away from home and be away from home for weeks at a time. Well, today's modern woman wants their man to be home every night. And when you're working on a tugboat or a supply boat or something like that, you're not going to be home every night. You know, you may be away from home for weeks at a time. And the young people coming up just not willing to do it. But I'm going to tell you something. When I made captain at age 20, I was making more money that first year as captain than any teacher that ever taught me in high school, and I had no college degree. So I'm a firm believer that to be successful, you don't need a college degree. Nothing wrong with getting one, but there's nothing wrong with going and doing a trade, whether it's a captain, an engineer, a welder, a mechanic, a machinist, or whatever. I mean, our industry needs all those. And but the young people coming up, they're just unwilling to do those jobs.
Yeah.
Even though it's some high-paying jobs, but there's a lot of sacrifice.
I agree. The application of your personal resources and investing in yourself pay off in the end.
That's right. That's right. And there's a large portion of your masters and mates and engineers that'll be out of this completely retired within 10 years. And partner, it's going to be tough to fill those shoes. Very tough. I mean, companies need to start now. They should have started 5 years ago. It's going to be tough. It's going to be tough. That's what I see as our biggest obstacle.
Now, and you plan going forward. You're planning on you want to be with Crosby right on down till you decide to.
So I decided to hang it up.
Hang it up.
Yep. And I told my wife, don't wait for me to retire because you're gonna get a lot of cobwebs on you. Because as long as I have my health, that's the key. As long as I have my health, I'm working full time, at least till age 70. And then maybe at 70, depending on what's going on at the time, I might ease up the throttle a little bit. But I'm just having too much fun. You know, I just enjoy it. I just enjoy what I do.
Well, I got to tell you, we thank you and the guys that you've assembled here and brought here for the project that took place. There's no doubt it wouldn't have happened if they hadn't have had this level of expertise out here. And there's one thing that was always true, steadfast, count on it, dependable, was operation of the tugboats around the project. And that's just the tip of the hat to you and the guys that y'all brought in.
Well, and it means a lot to me coming from you. We was told the same thing by our client, that they were very pleased. Our guys performed very well. We was able to meet any task that came our way, and we did it. I'm just one person in the group that does it. It's all a team effort, my man. All a team effort. We started out when we come out with the first section. We had the leader towing, the Kurt in the push, the star on the starboard side, the Caitlin on the port side. We come out with the last section. We had the star towing, the Kurt in the push, and the Caitlin on the port side. That was it. We knocked down about 9,000 horsepower off of it. So we how you say that? We evolved constantly through the process, and it's like I told them. I said, look, whatever boats we have at the time, we're gonna get it done. It's just a matter of we got to make sure we're doing it at the slack water tides, and we just take our time and it will get done safely.
Well, one other thing that I want to say before I close out, and I say this with regularity on my videos. So one of the last things I say is, I want you guys to be safe out there. And when I was saying that, I was saying that to everybody that was out there working on that project.
Yes, sir.
The guys that are out there putting their boots on, you guys out there on these boats, everybody associated with it. Those are the guys I was saying that to.
Yeah.
And one thing we've learned is everybody maintained a very high level of professionalism and a very high level of safety consciousness on this project.
Yeah.
And that, to me, is probably the most satisfying element of this, is that this major project was completed to where we are today.
Yes.
Without any serious injuries.
Absolutely. And look, that's something that everybody that was involved in the whole operation, all the different vendors, all the different companies, they all need to be proud of that. Now, one thing I want to say, to show you how small a world we live in, the Stephanie Dam that's on this project, Captain Wayne Savoy, lifelong friend of mine. We were raised in the same neighborhood. I was raised on East 7th Street, he was raised on East 6th Street, 4 houses away from each other.
And you're right back here in Brunswick.
And we're right back here in Brunswick working on this major project together.
The two different companies.
We worked together as tug captains from the Ram Tow, and we relieved each other. And then when I took the office job, he worked for me. And I hadn't seen him in years. And then all of a sudden I come over here and I'm coming up on the Kurt J. I look at, we passing the Stephanie Dan, I see somebody at the out station. I said, man, that looks like Wayne Savoy. I get on the radio. His nickname is Yons. I said, hey, Yons. Hey, who's this? I said, buddy Cantrelle. He said, where you at? I said, I'm right in front of you. Just amazing. Just a small world, man.
Talk about full circle.
From the same little town,
That is awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's going to wind up our interview from the Kurt J. And we certainly, golly, this has been a dream for me to be able to come out here and enjoy this and go through this vessel. And I've been welcomed. The whole crew has just been just very hospitable. And there's nothing. They've opened up the whole boat. Come in and take a look, and it's been an incredible experience. And I want to thank you. Thank you very much.
It. Happy to do it. Mr. Kurt sends his regards.
Hey, take care, and I want you to be safe out there.
You got it, man. You too. Thanks.